Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. I'm Gina Sudam. I'm the president of the Wyoming County Chamber of Commerce. And we have been running this Restart, Rebound, Rebuild series for about 6 weeks now. We are entering our rebound phase this week, and we're going to focus over the next 5 weeks on some industry-specific calls as well as some general calls that will relate to all businesses. So this morning we have on the call with us the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association. We have Melissa Bova, who is the VP of Government Affairs, and I hope I said your last name correctly. And we have Hope Sterner, the Director of Education, also from the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association. So thank you, ladies, for being with us this morning. We appreciate you taking the time. And we would just like to start out with you telling us a little bit about who the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association is and kind of what you do.
Sure, I will kick us off. The Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, we are the trade organization similar to the Chamber, but we represent the entirety of the hospitality and tourism industries in Pennsylvania. We were founded in 1937. We started as just restaurants. In 2012, we brought on the lodging communities, and then in 2016, we were really excited to bring in the rest of the tourism destinations in Pennsylvania and really kind of be a united voice for hospitality and tourism in Pennsylvania. And that's how we started. And then, of course, as most organizations are, we are a membership organization. But with the COVID-19 pandemic, similar to many other trade organizations, we kind of stopped becoming a membership organization and just became a resource for the entire industry organization. So the information that we provide every day via daily updates, via webinars, via educational components is open and available to anybody in the industry because PRLA really, truly believes that we're all in the same boat. We need to get through this crisis together. So for the time being and for the near future, we will continue to be offering all of the resources that the PRLA provides to all members of the industry, whether they are members or not. And that's, I think, reflective of a lot of trade organizations that are just recognizing the need for information and getting that information specifically out to the industries that need it.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who don't know, the website is prla.org. Melissa has been running, I think, as many webinars as I have. I went out there and she has a great library of resources that she has done. And again, these all relate directly to the restaurant, lodging, and hospitality industry. So if you have not gotten a chance to, please go out, visit their website, prla.org, and view those webinars if you're looking for specific information. So Melissa, we're going to dig in this morning. The way we run our series is it's a Q&A. Questions have been submitted from our local businesses and actually businesses across the region, because we did open this up to other chamber members and the community at large. So kind of first and foremost, do you want to talk to us a little bit about some best practices for restaurant owners right now? I know they're only permitted to do takeout, and that has been a challenge for some of our local businesses.
Yeah, obviously, as you all know, the governor is utilizing a red, yellow, green reopening phase. We are all still stuck in red at this point in time, which is the most frustrating of all of the phases. And it really is restrictive in terms of restaurants. Now, this is not a PA-specific thing. Almost every state in the country, when they first shut down, did shut down restaurants except for takeout and delivery. But it does require restaurants to be creative in that space, in that red space, in terms of the offerings to your customers. And we all know you're operating, if you're doing takeout, if you're doing 30%, you're probably doing pretty good compared to others. 30% is about the average, which is also incredibly frustrating. But what we are seeing, some creative things that we've seen some restaurants start to do is, one, they're simplifying their menus. If you have not felt it yet, you will start feeling the supply chain issues that are coming from the meat shortages, a lot of the meat packing plants that have been shut down because of COVID. So by nature and necessity, you are really going to need to revisit your menus. And really we're seeing people streamline them, offering a few different items for appetizers, salads, and mains, so you can churn out the food faster. We have some people that are really slow and then they get slammed. When their whole menu is available, they have up to a 2-hour wait for food. And in that case, they're probably losing some customers. So your menu is going to be really key in terms of this. Family style meals. I'm not sure if that has gone gangbusters in your neck of the woods, but it's something that we're seeing a lot of restaurants do and a lot of people take advantage of. Everyone is sick of cooking at this point in time. So the fact that you can go and get a meal ready to go for a family of 4 is something that is really doing well for restaurants in that space. We have some that every day on Sunday, they'll release their weekly menu of what the family dining meals are. We are seeing some really kind of cool things in terms of cooking classes. You can go to a restaurant and pick up the raw materials, join a webinar or a video, and you get walked through with the chef of that restaurant, how that cooking is going, how you create the meal, and you do that step by step with them. Another last one I'll throw out that we're kind of seeing in this red specifics phase is your broadliners especially have a lot of product that can't necessarily go to grocery stores. So we are kind of seeing restaurants go into this retail space of some cases raw meat, steaks, burgers that they're selling, as far as toilet paper, hand sanitizer, fruits, vegetables, just kind of not a full retail space, but when somebody is going and placing that order for that food and they come and pick it up, they can pick up a few more necessities, and it's just a little bit extra that is helping restaurants kind of make a little extra income during this. So those are kind of, I would say, the bigger things. I will say, I'm not sure if it's such an issue up there. Delivery is huge, but we also encourage restaurants to provide their own delivery services or encourage pickup. Some of the fees from some delivery services are so high that it's not even worth the restaurant to offer it. So we encourage restaurants to look in that space in terms of offering their own delivery or encouraging pickup for their customers, because some of these fees go higher than 30%, and at the end of the day, the restaurant doesn't make anything at the end of the day.
One of the things that's hard in Wyoming County, at least for delivery, is that we're so spread out. So we're a very spread out population, but I think with restaurants starting to receive their PPP funding, they want to bring back their staff, their wait staff, but they might not know what to do with them. Have you seen that become the case? So their wait staff maybe start doing deliveries?
We've seen a lot of wait staff do deliveries. We've even seen, we've had some restaurants that are just like, we've meant to refinish the floor or do some painting, for the past 2 years. And since we're not open, this is a great task for some of our employees. So we've really seen people get creative in that space as well in terms of using their employees. But yes, delivery is absolutely an option for your employees in terms of getting the food to the customers if they don't want to come and pick it up themselves.
So eventually we're going to open back up our restaurants. What are you hearing about, right? What are you hearing about limitations for those restaurants? I've seen other states do limited occupancy and so on. Are you hearing that happening here?
So obviously we have 2 stages left, and that yellow stage will be currently under the governor's guidance, doesn't really change anything. We're exploring that outdoor seating scenario to see if that's an option. PRLA is pushing hard to allow for outdoor service. Now there's a difference between outdoor seating where somebody can get their takeout and maybe sit at your outdoor tables and eat their food there, compared to them getting actually serviced and served from your employees in that outdoor space. Currently, the service portion is not permitted in the yellow stage. We are working really hard to allow for that, in addition to expanding the service area. So if you are a liquor licensee, maybe utilizing your parking lots or going out into the sidewalks to expand that social distancing that's needed, you can serve more people, you can increase your revenue in that yellow stage. Beyond that, and I've said this a few times, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, even when we enter green, which is when everybody kind of thinks things will be back to normal, They will not be back to normal in our industry. Restaurants, we do not expect to be allowed to operate at 100% capacity. We expect social distancing to still be a requirement, whether it is doing occupancy at 50%, or ensuring your tables or your individuals are 6 feet away, or using plexiglass. All of those are things that are going to continue in and throughout the green stage. So it's really important, as you're thinking ahead, don't think that when you hit green, everything will go back to normal. Our entire industry, the nature of which is people congregating and coming together and being close and celebrating, it is not going to go back to that immediately. And it's going to take time. And restaurants, if they want to survive, are going to have to adapt to the new realities of that social distancing, of that sanitizing, of masks to a certain extent, of temperature checks or health checks of your employees. All of those are things that are going to continue within the green phase.
Thank you. I think that has hit on a lot of our questions actually coming up. And the next one was, am I allowed to provide picnic tables in my parking lot for people to consume their takeout meals?
So it's kind of funny because we're in a bit of a gray area. In red, if it is not on your property, you might be able to get away with it. But even in red, you can't have people congregating in groups of more than 10. So you have to be really careful of that. And further to that point, in red, there can be nobody on the property of the restaurant. So if it's your parking lot, or if it's your outdoor seating area and it's licensed under your liquor license, that would not be permitted in the red phase as of right now. So really be careful if you're looking at that, just because it's a little bit of a gray area in terms of if you're in violation, at least on the parking lot piece and the tailgating piece in terms of people congregating. In yellow, like I said, we're pushing to allow for outdoor service. We have been hearing mixed responses in terms of if you have seating outdoors and somebody comes and gets their takeout, can they come and sit in your outdoor seating area if you're practicing social distancing? And as long as there is no service to the customer. We have not gotten a clear answer on that. We believe that that is going to be allowed as long as people are practicing social distancing, as long as the tables are sanitized in between. But we would like to take that yellow phase even a step further to allow that outdoor service and allow you to expand your service in the outdoor space.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I should have mentioned at the beginning of this call, if you have questions for Melissa, please type them into the chat. We will try to get to them. I do have about 15 or so questions that were sent to me. So we're going to go through these first, and then we will try to get to anything in the chat. Has there been any talk about plexiglass barriers? So I know they're recommended now for if you have a checkout area in your restaurant where customers usually come up and bring their bill to you and stand there while they check out. Though it's recommended that you put up barriers there, but this person asked about in between tables for dining in restaurants.
If you were, and I've been asked 2 months ago, if you were to say, what do you think about plexiglass between tables? I would have said, that's weird. But it's actually becoming, to a certain extent, and like I said, we're in a frustrating place, and I know the governor is in a frustrating place because we've never been through anything like this before. So they're making it up as they go along. They're figuring it out, and we don't know exactly what the parameters are going to be when we hit green and you can allow that indoor dining. Now, based on what we've seen in other states and what we expect in Pennsylvania, plexiglass isn't the worst idea to comply with the barrier between tables without having to hit that 6 feet of social distancing. So it might be a feasible option for some of you to look into that, because it is going to allow you to seat more in a space while ensuring the protection of the individuals at the table. So it's not something that the governor has said it will be allowed entirely. We believe it will be. And if you are especially in a small establishment and you just can't break even with the 6 foot distancing, it's definitely something you might want to look into.
Okay. And then so I've seen restaurants that do kind of private dining curtains at times. Would that work? Or are you thinking the plexiglass more barrier?
I have not, the problem with curtains, and this is kind of the thing with the plexiglass, you need to sanitize the plexiglass between each seating. So I would be concerned about how easily you could sanitize. I know I saw an article, someone was using shower curtains. I have not seen those, and I don't know if Hope has. I've not seen that being specifically allowed unless it's in kind of a barrier space. But I would be careful if you do that, because, and let me say this as well. In addition to the things that you are doing to operate, customer perception is going to rule the day on this more than anything else. So if your customers come in and think, I'm not sure about that's not going to do you any good. So you really need to kind of think about the customer perception on they see it when they walk in. Do they think that makes them safer? Do they feel more comfortable dining? Or is it something that makes them feel uncomfortable and that they might not want to? Because that's something you need to think about as well. We're going to have standards from the governor, from the state, from CDC. But honestly, restaurants are probably going to have to go above and beyond those standards just to get the customers comfortable and wanting to come back into the space.
Right. Well, thank you for that. With respect to staying open and a takeout only policy, are customers allowed to enter the establishment, pick up and pay? Or is it necessary to bring the food out curbside only?
Customers are allowed to come in and pick up their order and pay inside. There's some places where there's some more restrictions, that's Philadelphia. But outside of that, now what they don't really want is the customer to come in, place the order, and wait for 30 minutes while you're making the order. They want you to call ahead and then the customer can come in and pick it up. But there are no requirements in terms of them coming in. With that being said, there are the requirements of people entering the business, which means they need to be wearing their face masks. There needs to be a barrier at the register or some type of whether it's plexiglass or a table that ensures that they're staying 6 feet away. So if they are coming in, you do need to take precautions in terms of them paying and sanitizing. It's another thing with the hand sanitizer and the sanitizing of items. All of that would need to be practiced if they come in. So they are allowed, but there are standards you need to meet to that level.
Melissa, are there resources on your website regarding how to educate restaurant workers on contactless delivery and takeout?
Hope, do we have that? I'm assuming we do. Hope's our education person.
Hi, nice to meet everybody. Actually, through ServSafe, they have developed 2 training programs for the COVID-specific crisis. One is for delivery, one is for takeout. They're free. They're 10-minute videos, I think 10, 15-minute videos, where you can share them to your employees and definitely have them as a resource. They're up on their website. We do have a link on our website. They're also offering during this period, well, until the 31st of this month, free ServSafe food handler training. Now remember, food handler training does not comply with the food employee certification requirements in the state, but is a great program for you to have your employees go through. It covers the basics. It's an abbreviated course of the managers, but it's definitely something to take advantage of, to have all your employees go through the training. It's all online. They can go on, create a profile, move the course into their profile and take the course. It's 90 minutes. They'll get a certificate of completion that they can show to you that they've gone through the training. And I think it's a great additional piece for you when we go back into reopen, to say that all your employees have gone through certain steps of training that was available, and remember, it's free until the end of this month, but they don't have to do it by the end of this month. They just need to get it into their profile by the end of this month, and then they'll have up to a year to do that training.
Great. And what we'll do is we will post the links to that, to your website, on our page when we post the recording of today's webinar. These are available. Again, the recording of today's webinar will be available on our website, so you can show this to your employees later if you would like to do that. Here's another question. You mentioned testing earlier. Do you have to test everyone in the restaurant every day? And let's just start with that question, right? Because I think there's 2 different questions here. So should we be testing every employee that's coming into work in our restaurant every day?
In terms of,
I mean temperature testing. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's not required for you to do temperature testing. The only requirement regarding temperature testing is if somebody has been subjected to COVID. So if one of your employees has COVID or they've been around somebody who has, at which point you need to do temperature testing for all employees for 14 days. It's not required. You can certainly do it. During a pandemic, you are allowed to take the temperature of your employees, or another option is to have them complete a health survey at the beginning of each shift, which certifies that they're saying they're not experiencing any symptoms, they haven't been around anybody with COVID. It's kind of a 3-question survey that they can complete at the beginning of each shift that just gives you the basis to know that your employees have been, safe and they're healthy and they can work.
So here is kind of the second part of that question is, should we be performing temperature checks if we know someone in our restaurant or in our hotel was diagnosed with COVID? Do we temperature check everyone for a period of 14 days, or just the employees that came in contact with the infected person?
Everyone on the property, because the problem with COVID is that you don't have symptoms and it can spread. So it's not necessarily everybody who's come in contact. So the guidance from the department is, if there's somebody who's tested or been in contact, you need to test everybody at the beginning of their shift for 14 days.
Great. Are there any efforts taking place? I know you are an advocacy organization as well. Are there any efforts to provide relief for sales and use tax, such as deferment, forgiveness, or discounts right now?
Oh, the bane of my existence. So yeah. when this started, we pushed hard to allow, because quite frankly, when you had to pay your March tax or your February tax on March 20th, and that was a quarterly pay, we pushed hard to try and allow you to keep that cash flow. The state did push back the prepay, so that is for anybody that is remitting, I think, more than $25,000 in sales tax. You no longer need to prepay, recognizing that you're certainly not going to be bringing in that much in sales tax. But the state has not budged in terms of requiring you to remit your sales tax month to month. And they, in their minds, they believe that once you collect it, it goes into a special little for the state account, as opposed to you dipping into just your general reserves to pay it out every month or every quarter. So they have not budged on that. But with that being said, we are focusing on other financial ways to help the industry in terms of getting grants from federal, maybe the 4th CARES Act. I know everybody needs a loan like they need a hole in the head at this point in time. People need grants, they need cash flow, they need to get through it. We're really focused on that. We are looking at, actually this week, we should have legislation that passes that would allow, if you're doing takeout, allow you to sell mixed drinks, cocktails to go, in addition to beer. And if you have a wine expanded permit, there is no cost to that. We really pushed for the legislature to recognize that every little bit helps. I joke a little bit that it might be because I want a really good margarita, but I promise the broader goal, yes, exactly. The broader goal is to give you all some options in terms of supplementing your takeout business to that end. We are also focusing a lot on pushing back a lot of those license renewals, those business renewals, just all those day-to-day things. I know that their legislation passes, it relates to taxes, property taxes, potentially freezing those. Those are all balls in the air that we recognize and that we're working on to alleviate for all of you. No one needs an extra bill or another bill to pay right now until we're on the other side of this. And we're really pushing to get the legislature. And as I said, the PA Chamber, we work hand in hand with them on a lot of these issues. They've been phenomenal. Jean Barr is great. And I know all of the local chambers. I was on a webinar last week with the Upper Bucks Chamber, and all of you have just been doing a phenomenal job in advocating for your businesses. And we look forward to continuing to fight the fight and achieve that kind of financial leniency for businesses as we work through it.
Sure. So we're going to start moving into the hotel industry a little bit, but I do have a question coming in from a restaurant. And it says, there have been some companies that have said they can sanitize kitchens from the virus for up to 6 months. Is this something we anticipate being a standard for reopening?
No.
I want to speak to the first part of this. So any company that is telling you they can sanitize from the virus for a period of time, meaning we're going to do a one-time cleaning and that's going to make you free of the virus for the next 6 months, that is not true. So we had a company that specializes in disease control come in and speak, and that webinar is posted on our site. It's called Disinfecting Your Workplace. And basically he said, I can come in and disinfect your whole workspace and say, okay, you're clear to go. And you could walk in and infect that place with COVID that day. And there is nothing I can do about it. I cannot guarantee that once I leave, once I've cleaned your space, once I leave and you let a single person back in, that person is not infected with COVID and will not infect your space. So I would not hire a company that is guaranteeing you to be free and clear for any period of time. And Melissa, I think the second part of this question is maybe more to you is, will the restaurants need to do a more in-depth kitchen cleaning prior to opening up a restaurant for more than takeout for sit down again?
We haven't gotten guidance to that end as of right now, but with that being said, and Hope might be able to speak to some of the ServSafe guidance. I mean, what we're seeing is the recommendation that you deep clean every night. When you close, you should be cleaning the kitchen. You should be doing a deep clean, or you should be doing it every few days. So those are things that, even if not required under the reopening, it should be something that you are doing anyway to protect your employees and to protect your guests. We have not seen any specific kind of timelines of how you do that, but it is going to be something you're going to need to work into your day-to-day operations.
Great. And along the same lines of kind of the outdoor seating, someone asked earlier, for outdoor seating, when we start to open that back up, can they only sit with their like immediate family or household? Again, I don't know how you would differentiate that. If a party's walking in together, you have to kind of assume they're together.
Yeah, we've heard a few things in this space, and we're trying to make it a little broader than what I think others are. It's impossible to enforce the family mechanism. I mean, you could have discrimination as part of that if you are assuming or not assuming. We are seeing some restaurants that are saying that they will require reservations only, so there can be contact tracing if there is an infection. But we are really looking at that outdoor space, especially as it comes in terms of the mask portion of it, that when you come in as a party, you are a party, you will be seated. Once the party is seated, they would remove their masks to consume their food. And then when they get up and leave the table, anytime they leave the table, they would need to put their mask back on. But it would be impossible to kind of require it to be family only at this point. Now, there might be restrictions in terms of how many you can sit at a table. They might say you can't have more than 10 people or some number at a table in that space, but I have not, and I do not expect to see a family restriction.
Great. And I think that answered the second part of the question. And I've been kind of wondering that myself, is what do you do with your mask when you're in a restaurant, right? It's kind of an odd, because again, they tell you not to remove it and so on. So let's get into the lodging. So Wolfband short-term rentals, does that include bed and breakfast and inn?
No, and that's because we were kind of apart and as the government worked through that. So it only impacts let me put it this way. If you are a hotel, motel, or inn, you are not subject to the short-term rental. We specifically delineated the word inn as part of that. So bed and breakfasts are not part of the short-term rental ban.
Great. Once we're in the green phase, is it expected that we will be able to open without capacity restrictions? I'm concerned about all the wedding events that we have booked for late summer and the fall months.
I'm going to give you some really bad news. We we do not expect it to be, we don't, like I said, it's not going to be a switch that's flipped, and catering and those wedding events are really going to be a struggle. In yellow, you're at 25. You can't have more than 25 people in a space. I would say green, we'll be lucky if we hit 250. It might be 100. There are going to continue to be those congregating limits in place until we just see this go away completely, or we see the numbers so low that they are not a threat anymore. So do not expect once we hit green that you can go back and your weddings can run as scheduled depending on the numbers. We don't know what the number is yet, but I can guarantee you we're not going to be at unlimited, and we might not even be at 250 when we hit green.
Right, and I'd like to remind people that, again, green is Pennsylvania is now following the CDC guidelines. And when this first started, the CDC put out guidelines that said no gatherings, no large gatherings. And then they kind of defined large gatherings as more than 100 people. So I think that we need to keep that in mind, that the CDC also is going to restrict this even after Governor Wolf moves that to the green phase. So my next question is, and again, it's tying into a question that I'm getting in the chat as well, but how will this affect the hotel industry? And the question that I'm getting is, what about pools? Do we anticipate the ability to use them and to open them?
Okay, so this is funny because we just submitted this question on Friday to the governor's office, because as you are all probably very much aware, when the governor makes an announcement, it takes us about a week to 10 days to actually understand what it means and who it impacts and who it doesn't and how it impacts. I can tell you what we think, but I am going to urge you to wait until we get clarification. Red stage, no pools. Yellow stage, we believe that outdoor pools will be able to operate, but it's going to have that 25-person capacity on it. You can't have more than 25 people in a space in yellow stage. Indoor pools, we are trying to delineate from the administration if an indoor pool is considered part of the gym, and gyms cannot reopen, in which case you could not reopen that in yellow stage. So we're looking for that. So we're really looking for clarification on the outdoor space. Is it going to be the 20? Can they open, which we think they can? Is it going to be 25 or something else, or if it's going to be some other formula? And then indoor pools, as I said, we're trying to get clarification on both of those right now. So I can tell you what we think they're going to say, but we did submit that question on Friday, and as soon as we get it, we'll get that information out.
Great, thank you. So it seems like you're kind of one step ahead of these questions, which is great for your industry, and I'm sure they're all very appreciative of this. Let's see, we talked about that, the phase. So we're currently only accepting reservations. This is, again, the hotel industry. So some were confused that they could only accept reservations for essential workers, or are they able to accept reservations from all guests traveling for any reason?
Hope's laughing because this has been a fun one, and I say that with all of the snark in the world. So here's the thing. When the governor shut down short-term rentals, hotels were exempt. When the governor shut down non-essential travel and issued the stay-at-home order, that order was on individuals. It was not on hotels. Hotels, there were no parameters. I mean, primarily what hotels are doing is taking care of essential employees, but there were no requirements saying that hotels had to deny a guest from coming into the hotel. If an individual decides that they want to not follow the stay-at-home order and go and stay at a hotel, it's not the hotel's job to say, where are you from? You're not allowed to be here. Is this for recreation or not? The hotel is not the enforcer in this. So it's kind of that, I think, the frustrating part of the governor's personal responsibility rule, where he's telling people what they need to do, but he's saying, I'm not going to enforce what you need to do, but you should know what you need to do. So two fronts on this. There's nothing on the state that is saying you have to deny people that are coming for recreation or coming for leisure. There's no guidance saying that hotels need to deny them. But we have heard complaints, and your local police forces have come in and questioned your guests. So you might want to reach out to your municipal police force, or if the state police are your enforcers, and see how they're interpreting it. Because we have seen some pushback on that front in terms of guests. But generally, you're in a safe space right now because people are going yellow. So people are allowed to travel. So at this point, I think you're safe to accept guests in terms of them coming and staying at the hotel. You have never been restricted to just essential employees. It's really just been individual responsibility of not traveling. And now that people can, there would be no barriers in you accepting guests at this time. Now, you would have to follow all of the congregating rules within your establishment. They need to wear masks. They can't congregate in groups of 10. You can't open up your restaurants. You can still only do room service. So you have to look at your business model since you are still in the red stage, and see how you would be able to operate with people that are coming for leisure but would still need to meet the red state requirements.
Right. Good. So if a guest or a staff member in a hotel is diagnosed with the virus, will the hotel be required to close?
You are not required to. I have to think about the guidance. You have to do a deep clean. I do not believe you have to close, but you do have to do a deep clean. I think within 24 hours. We would have to. That's in the business guidelines. We would just have to check that. We don't believe you'd have to close, but you would have to do a deep cleaning of the entire property.
And then are all of the staff ordered to quarantine? So again, I see some of our smaller hotels here that may not have a lot of staff. They have the same person who runs the front desk pretty much day in and day out. If the virus is in their hotel and their entire team needs to quarantine, that could really shut them down. What is the guidance on that?
So you have to temperature check, but you only need to quarantine those employees that came in contact with the person who was infected. So that's kind of your line. You temperature check everybody. You have to quarantine for 14 days those employees that through contact tracing interacted with the person who was infected with COVID.
Okay. I know that we're kind of past our time, and I think this is, we have some really important questions, and Melissa's doing a great job with us. I want to be aware of your time though, because we did say we would try to keep you, and I anticipate we'll be done by 10. Are you still good on your time?
We can be done by 10. I think we can make it work.
Okay, great. In the event that a guest arrives for check-in and they do not have a mask on, are we able to sell them one? And if so, does the mask need to be individually packaged?
You are allowed to sell them one. You cannot price gouge, so make sure that the pricing is reasonable. And there is no requirements in terms of sanitized packaging. I mean, it's obviously a good idea. It's something you should consider, but there is no requirements. I mean, even for grocery stores, if grocery stores have extra masks and you go in and you don't have one, they can give you one. There is no requirement that it be sanitized. But that being said, is a person going to wear a mask that you hand to them without them feeling comfortable that it's safe and sanitized? That's just a question you need to ask yourself, but there is no requirement that they need to be.
And then this was so the hotels are required now to put the plexiglass up. Are they then required to make everyone wear the mask if they do have that plexiglass up at check-in?
Yes, but as I said again, this is not the hotel being the enforcer. You do not need to, put somebody, like strong arm somebody out of the hotel because they're not wearing a mask. Your duty at the hotel is to inform your guests that they need to wear a mask upon entering and when they're in any public spaces. If you see them without a mask, you need to remind them that they need one. But you are not the enforcer. You're not evicting anybody. You're not kicking anyone out. So if they come up and they're not wearing a mask at checkout, even though the plexiglass is there, they still need to be reminded that they need one. But your duty is to tell them they need one and not to enforce it if they don't have
Right, and that can be done just through signs so that you don't have to put your staff in that situation to kind of push everyone to do that, correct?
Yes, and signage, we have signage that we put up on our website for people to use. It's really just, the business has to check the box saying we informed people, right back to that personal responsibility rule of individuals needing to do the right thing. The hotel is not the enforcer of that.
So one of the questions that came in is about when outdoor seating is open, are outdoor bars also permitted to open and serve?
Yes, but you have to be careful about your seats at the bars. So really, you would have a difficult time ensuring social distancing, or you would need plexiglass barriers to some point. But your outdoor bar could be open, but you need to encourage social distancing. So people just walking up to the bar and ordering a drink when people are sitting at the bar is something you're really going to have to think about. It just might not be an option anymore. So you have to think about how your bar looked when it was open before, and what changes are you going to have to make to meet the social distancing requirements of that.
And here's a big question that I know the PA Chamber is getting to. Is there any movement on protection from liability for customers and guests contracting COVID-19 and claiming it was from a restaurant, hotel, or resort?
We are lockstep with the chamber on this. This is a top priority of ours. We had hoped that the governor would provide some guidance on that. He did provide liability protection to some healthcare workers. We are working on legislation. I know Senator Pat Stefano out in Fayette County, if it hasn't been introduced, is introducing legislation for liability protection. We know this is the next big thing for all, not just our industry, the entire business community, in terms of reopening and liability, in terms of the trial lawyers and how they're eyeing that up already. So we have not been able to achieve that yet, but it is absolutely a top priority for us. We recognize that that is just something that you don't need to worry about, and you shouldn't have to worry about if you're taking all the proper protections.
And is it kind of the same along the lines of what happens if an employee contracts the virus? Can they turn it into a workers' comp case?
They can. They would be, I mean, if they got it on at the business, yes, then it would be subject to workers' comp. But I would probably turn that back over to the chamber, because I always joke that I hate workers' comp. I always like to leave that to my chamber friends.
Right. And she means the PA Chamber.
Yeah.
Chamber and his folks.
PA Chamber.
Not your local chamber. Who still struggle to answer some of those questions. One thing, though, that I will say your local chamber does, and I know that the PRLA is doing, and this is a question that came in, is how can we all be supportive of the messaging of online and takeout orders right now? So it seems tough to determine who's open, who's not open, who's open maybe this weekend because it's Mother's Day, but it's not going to stay open. And I would say utilize your local chamber. Make sure if you're a restaurant owner and you're open, that your local chamber knows that as soon as you know, so that they can get it in newsletters and advertisements. But also, Melissa, I think I saw a great resource on your website as well.
Yes, we have started carryoutpa.com. And that is open to all hospitality, all restaurants. Once again, you do not have to be a member. It is a resource out there for everybody. And it is a listing of restaurants that are open. And it's a really cool space. You can put up your menu. You can put out if you do delivery. You can put up your price points. And it's just a really easy way for people in the community to go on and see what's available near them. And I think we're up to, as of last Monday, we had over 1,600 listings. So I know we probably have even more now. And this is not something that once we're through COVID is going to go away. Carry out and takeout is going to continue to be a part of our industry. So this is going to continue moving forward as a resource for consumers, but also for restaurants to get what they're offering out there to a bigger public space.
Very good. And I think that we can wrap it up on that note. Melissa and Hope, I thank you so much for being with us today. I will say that we have another webinar again on Wednesday coming up, and that one is Bringing Back PA. We mentioned our PA Chamber folks a lot today. They have a great website tool called Bringing Back PA, and we're going to have someone from the PA Chamber introduce that tool to us. Again, this webinar is open to everyone, so not just Wyoming County Chamber members, but Chamber members across the region, and you're welcome to join us. And I should say, I'm sorry, businesses across the region, not just Chamber members. This is open to everyone. Our series is open to everyone. Thank you again, Melissa, for being here, and Hope, we appreciate your time today. Thank you for all you're doing with the hospitality industry. And we look forward to maybe bringing you back on our webinars in the future when we do our rebuild phase and finding out what's happening in the next phase of all of this. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.